All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am so excited because today I have with me Nick Osborne. Welcome, Nick.
Andrew, thank you for having me.
All right, Nick, let's get started with the hardest question that I have for you. Can you share a little bit about yourself, your background, and what led you to work with the military community?
Sure. So I completed 8 years in the Coast Guard. I worked in tactical law enforcement, and then I went into intelligence work. And I was enlisted, and then halfway through my career, I became an officer. So I did a total of 3 years on active duty and 5 years in the reserves, including a year-long deployment to the Middle East. And then when I left the military, I ended up completing a doctorate at the University of California at Davis, and I started a career at a Big Ten school. And at the time, they wanted to begin a military program, and I got asked to lead that, and it just continued to evolve from there. By the time I left, I was overseeing a $14 million program with a pretty large staff. We were putting out a lot of publications, doing a lot of research, bringing in grant money, and serving just over 400 student veterans.
Wow. No, that's impressive. One of the unique things that I caught on to you right away is just your passion for serving this community. We haven't been working too long together, but every time we have conversations, you can just sense that passion. You're just here to serve and find the best opportunities for this specific audience. And, you shared a little bit about your background experience, but I want to know, do you have some type of experience that kind of led you to the way that you provide service to this specific community?
It's a good question, Andrew. And, I enlisted in the military shortly after 9/11. And it's hard for a lot of people to remember, but, we were in a place of war for 20 years, more or less. And what happened was we were seeing that people in our military weren't just going overseas once. A lot of times they were doing multiple deployments. And when they came home and they left the military, a lot of them were sort of searching for a new sense of purpose. What do I do now with my life? And when you leave the military, you're also leaving behind a really tight community where there's strong camaraderie. And so for some, when you leave the military, it can be the first time you're sort of having to navigate the world alone. And what I found was that higher education provided a great way to give that sense of purpose, but also so many employers recognize what military personnel bring to their teams. There was always a joke that faculty would say, I know when I have a student veteran in my class because they show up 15 minutes early. So there's these habits that we would continue to see. But also related to that is a lot of what I found from people who hadn't been in the military was that they had derived their assumptions through film and media. And while, that's a very natural and normal thing to do, a lot of the story kind of got stuck around post-traumatic stress. And so there was this wide range of assumptions where those who had served in the military had all been in combat, had all done heroic things. And then on the other side of that range, you had people who served in the military are ticking time bombs, and it's just a matter of time before they do something violent. So a large part of what my work was to really break down these narratives and to give a more accurate story and portrayal.
Thank you so much for sharing that great storytelling. And you can really see how those experiences have guided you in the way that you provide service today. And so, my next question for you is, why is it so important for institutions like NMSU Global to actively support military connected learners?
When you look at the mission of Global, one of the things that really drew me to work at Global is that there's a commitment to how our student landscape is changing. We have such a diverse student body now, and we're constantly having to adapt to changes in technology, AI, and things like that. And what I've always experienced early on is that military students bring a tremendous amount of leadership and maturity to higher ed. And what that does is it raises the bar for everybody involved. So if you have a student veteran or an active duty student in your course, they've probably already held some sort of a leadership position, or maybe they've been overseas for several years, or maybe they're currently overseas and they're interacting with different cultures. Some of them have gone off to war. So there's a tremendous amount of wisdom and depth that I believe they bring to higher ed. And our goal is to bring that out to benefit the larger student experience for all of our students.
No, that's great. And so now that you've had the opportunity, obviously, you've shared a lot about your background experience. What are some of the biggest challenges that you find when working with service members, veterans, and their families when they're actively pursuing an education?
I think a lot of it ties into just the non-traditional nature of many students and where their lives are at. You're balancing a career, you're balancing a home life, maybe there's children. So where do you find the emotional energy to fit into an academic program and to be fully present in that? And what I find is that military connected students run into those same obstacles. And the other thing that they run into, which is sort of a carryover of culture in the military, is they sometimes start off trying to do too much too soon. I'm going to start off with 8 classes and 24 credit hours. And our job is to say, well, hey, let's slow that down a little bit. Let's start off on a slower platform. And then as we gain that momentum, we gain that confidence, then we can start to hit the gas a little more.
Yeah, no, that's great. And a lot of what we do too at NMSU Global, like you mentioned, that adult learner, is we like to provide a lot of services to our students. Some of them are career services that we're able to offer, which include like resume writing, interview skills, soft skills training. The list goes on and on. And so, with that being said, for people that are watching in right now, what are some things that you wish people understood about the military's community contributions to the workforce?
I think that when you have military folks on your team, what you're dealing with are people who are easy to adapt to changing environments. They're used to working at fast tempos. It's a very outcome driven culture. And there's pros and cons to everything, right? Because most things work in polarity. And what I found is that sometimes veterans still have kind of a military mindset. So they have to learn the culture of where they're working, and they usually do that quite well. But I think that what you find is there's just a natural aptitude to take on bigger and broader tasks and to also apply the leadership attributes and skills that they've picked up and developed along the way and to put that into this new culture. And I believe that the workforce is enhanced when we do bring, these types of individuals onto our teams. And we're definitely seeing more and more folks are leaving the military and they're looking to start a new direction in terms of a career front.
No, great. And you've mentioned skills and knowledge quite a bit. And one of the unique things that we offer through NMSU Global is we have a variety of different types of upskilling opportunities. Of course, we have traditional education pathways, but we also have micro credentials. And one thing that was really exciting too in meeting with you is when we shared that micro credential concept with you and discussed that with you, you were ecstatic about the potential of offering these type of courses to the military community, as you had mentioned that this would be a great opportunity for them to upskill in certain things that would allow them to, perform well at their positions or even qualify for new positions or new work. And so, can you share a little bit about how the work that you're doing at NMSU Global is helping build pathways specifically for service members, veterans, and military connected families?
When I look at the win column of global for this population, there's a lot of check marks. And what I mean by that is, when I was on active duty, to find a really good, rigorous, and respected online program was not easy. And I think that that's one of our strengths is that we tie in so beautifully to those on active duty or those who are out and who are balancing other things. 100% online, flexible, but at the same time still rigorous and respected. Going back to the micro learnings, to your point, the military is always promoting skill acquisition. You're always going off to a new school to learn some sort of new tool that you're going to apply in the military. I think similarly, we're finding now that we're constantly in a state of having to evolve and refine our skill set. What I love about the micro learnings is that you get an immediate outcome for a skill. And the other thing I really like about this is, many military personnel, they join the military out of high school. Maybe they didn't see themselves as college material, or maybe they've had a long break in their education. This is a great way to sort of dust off those skills again and say, hey, I do have it in me now. I do have this ability to not only be a global student, but to succeed and to thrive. And so I think it can be a great entry point for those who are looking to go back to school and to finally, finish that degree that they've always wanted to accomplish.
No, that's great. And, one of the things as well, going back to the services that we provide, is we provide a lot of support services for our students. Can you talk a little bit more about the academic, financial aid, and career focus that support services that are available for military learners to succeed?
I think one of the huge strengths is that we use a teams approach concept. And when you're in the military, you are part of the team. You learn, day one in basic training and boot camp that you want to get rid of this idea of you as an individual and you want to start seeing yourself as part of something larger. One of the limitations of the military, though, is it also teaches a lot of independence to the point that it can be difficult to ask for help. And I think that what's so great about the teams is that we're bringing in financial aid, we're bringing in academic advising, we're bringing in a student mentor coach, myself in career services. So each of us is bringing a tool. We're bringing something very specific to this population, and we all are working from the same framework that we want this student to persist, to stay with us until they graduate and go on to their next role and work, whatever that may be.
Now that's great. And you had mentioned, like, what you shared is that sometimes people feel that, hey, this is, they're taught, right, to be independent and think on their own. And it's great that you mentioned that, hey, we have these support services. And now is an opportunity for you to support them through this quick little interview. So, if there was one piece of advice that you can offer to a service member or veteran about going back to school, what would that be?
I think that you find, again, going back to what I mentioned earlier, that when you leave the military, it's so important that you have a new sense of mission and a new sense of purpose. And you may find yourself not around the same sense of community that you had before. And education can provide a great passion. It can allow you to explore new things and learn new things about yourself. But again, in this market we're in, this economy we're in, to be able to have a target, whether it's a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, so on and so forth, a micro-learning badge, it's about equipping yourself with what you need to go to that next lily pad that you want to jump on. And I think that this is something that we're constantly urging our students to do is we want to see you not just succeed as a student, we want to see you thrive. We want to see you craft and develop a lifestyle that brings you joy and fulfillment. And I think that education is without a doubt one of the largest vehicles to help people get to that place.
Oh, great. And so, Nick, here's a question for you. So, what's the thing that excites you most about NMSU Global Campus's future in serving military? And how do our partnerships help military organizations upskill their workforce?
Andrew, I've only been at Global for 5 months, and I'm just amazed at how every day there's an email coming out that mentions the military, including from the president, including from our own here at Global, our own leadership team, from the chancellor. So this is clearly an area of passion. I think that we recognize that military affiliated students contribute to our larger mission to serve a diverse student body, to provide equipped and competent graduates to enhance the workforce. So what I find is that we're touching on all of the most essential points that I believe education in its fullness does. And to just be around people like yourself and like this work group that we're putting together, There's just a high motivation that's very authentic and very truthful. And we want to continue to build on this momentum. And I think we have just a tremendous amount of potential. Right now, we're still in a learning phase. We're in a relationship building phase. We're continuing to branch out and to bring in new stakeholders. But I think we are laying the foundation to build something very beautiful here.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that, Nick. And so, to cap things off, what is one message that you'd like every service member and veteran to hear today?
We learn in the military to take accountability and to take ownership of our lives. And that's a mantra that we want to just continue to carry with us. And education is a big part of that, knowing thyself and also learning to cultivate and craft a life that we're proud to live. And I believe that when you really sit back and you focus on what's important in life, it's our fulfillment, but it's also being of service to others. And again, that's a carryover from the military that we want to continue to instill in our students here. And I hope that they will check us out. I hope they will go on our website and look at our programs. Even better, I hope they'll reach out, send me an email. Let us know what you're thinking and where you want to grow into. And let's work together to get you there.